Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are back. It's been a while. First of all, we want to say Happy New Year's to each and every one of you that's tuning in. I know we've been missing for a while, but we got a lot to talk about today, and we're going to catch up. But I couldn't do this alone. I got my guys with me. We got Landon. We got Michael. We're going to start off with Michael. Michael, how are you feeling right now?
Um, Feeling okay. I'm actually feeling really good, honestly. Even though I'm still away from Twitter on my personal part, although that should be getting fixed here soon. Um, it's actually been peaceful not being in Colts Twitter. Not much stress, not much hate, not much just depression going on. Even though I'm still seeing it. When I go into the blue stable here and there, and I see some of the depression still going on. But it's a new year. Things are not really looking up for the Colts. But there's some decisions that are still to be made in the offseason, and we are crossing our fingers and hoping and praying to God that he gives a certain somebody in Indianapolis with power, wisdom for the next couple months in decision making.
Yeah. Landon at the bottom. How we doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Busy day. Before we get started, though, I do want to go ahead and send my thoughts and prayers. And I know speak for you guys as well out to Damar Hamlin. All that stuff happened last night, dude. It was very. I was shook last night, for better words. So it is tough to watch. Tough to watch the players on the field in that situation. Tough to watch the coaches. Just overall, just a terrible tragedy there. We, us at the Blue Stable, we want to send our prayers and our thoughts out to him and his family for a full recovery, and hopefully we hear some good news soon. So I just want to start off with that. But yeah, other than that, doing good. Everything's good over here. We're finally like semi back in like my little office area right now. It's if you didn't know, I had a couple pipes bust in my house, and our house flooded on Christmas night. So I've been dealing. We're gonna have to do like a full home renovation. So I'm tough to track down right now because people will be in and out of my house constantly and all that stuff. Yeah, doing good. Everything's going all right. So hopefully, good for y'all too.
Yeah, man, it's good to hear, man. Yeah, definitely sending prayers out. But we got some interesting topics to talk about today. But first, we gotta go again. We gotta do our normal thing. We gotta talk about the debacle that happened last week. The Colts losing to the Giants, of course. This won't be too long, so we'll get to the topic of the discussion of the title of the video. But just a quick thoughts. Nick Foles got hurt. Whole Kavan Thibodeau doing that celebration while Foles was on the ground. I want to get your guys' reaction to that first. Landon, what did you think about when Foles went down and he did that snow celebration?
Um, Really, like I didn't really have much of a problem with Thibodeau celebrating. I mean, this is it's the way the NFL is now. Guys celebrate after every play. That's normal. I didn't really have an issue with him celebrating a sack. Um, the issue that I had more or less was more with the offensive line refusing to, I guess, do something about it whenever, because it was kind of hard to watch there. Like I said, no problem with Thibodeau doing celebration, but Nick Foles is right next to him, and like the guy's clearly in pain. Like I mean, he's clearly going through something, and you got a guy that's not even a foot away from your quarterback. I mean, out of all positions, it's your quarterback. Uh, this is the guy that you know you fight for on your team. And Foles has been a leader in that locker room. I mean, we remember when Matt Ryan got benched, Nick Foles was the one that sought out, or and Frank Reich was fired, and not Nick Foles was benched, Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan was benched, Frank Reich's fired. Nick Foles is the guy that sought out Sam Ellinger and Quentin Nelson and talked to them in the locker room about leadership and about you know how they can overcome this situation. He has had a voice in that locker room as a leader, and for your offensive lineman to sit there and watch that happen, whenever a few plays later, we saw Okereke forearm to the head of Daniel Jones get a personal foul, and the offensive linemen for the Giants were all over him. I mean, instantly. So that's what really bothered me about it, was just to see the lack of camaraderie and the lack of protection and the lack of just a sense of a team that works together. And it showed up on the field, but that was just such a glaring example of how this season's gone, where this team is at, not only on the field, but off the field in the locker room right now. And it was just really disheartening for me to see something like that. And it really did bother me a lot.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Mike, let me get your thoughts on the whole sack celebration, Colts reaction.
Y'all can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, I'm with Landon on this one. First off, I mean, Kayvon's not, a player on my team. So if he wants to, be a trash human being, then that's his prerogative. He'll represent the Giants that way. I don't really care. But for him to come out and say, "Oh, I didn't know that he was in pain," when you were doing the snow angel, you hit him twice, one with your leg and one with your arm. So clearly, you knew he was right there. He was holding his ribs, looked like he was making noises, and then you go back to the sideline and say put him to sleep after he was already carted off. But my biggest issue was with the offensive line. Hell, maybe even with Jeff Saturday. I know I've been very vocal about not having any issues with Jeff Saturday because he's really just an ESPN analyst in a head coaching role. But even in that particular moment, knowing who Jeff Saturday was, what position he played, and the pride he took in a group of guys wanting to protect the face of the franchise, how he didn't go onto that field and cuss that entire offensive line out, I have no idea. How Ryan Kelly, how Quentin Nelson, how Braden Smith just stood there and didn't put hands on Kayvon Thibodeau is ironic to me. I mean, the season's gone. What are you going to lose if you put hands on Kayvon? Like, you're going to be suspended for one game. There's nothing at stake here. There's nothing at stake. So you're not in the playoffs. You're not going anywhere. What's it going to take? You're suspended for one game. Oh, well. That was my biggest issue. Nobody stood up. It seemed like nobody cares anymore. I mean, we figured that out a few weeks ago, but it just speaks to an entire locker room that doesn't care. There's no accountability. There's no pride, and I really don't talk. I don't like talking like that when I'm not in the locker room about pride and love for each other and stuff like that. But damn, you don't in times like these, you don't have to be an insider to know that. All you have to do is just look on the field, see their body language, see how they act, see how they refuse to stand up for one another. On offense, the only guy who looks like he actually gives a damn about football is Michael Pittman Jr. That's the only guy that seems like he actually cares. And then number two, I would probably say Paris Campbell. But other than that, nobody else seems like everybody's just there to catch paychecks, to make sure they do their due diligence, do their media, do their team meetings and all that stuff, and catch the remainder of their paychecks. And then, yeah, it's gotten embarrassing. I mean, my heart goes out to the 14 people that were forced to watch that game that Jim Irsay flew out to New York. I mean, my heart goes out to them. Like, you brought me to New York to watch this? Really? Like I said last time we talked about here, if I was just entering the contest, can I just get the trip to New York? I'll pass on the tickets. I mean, hell, give me the tickets. I'll sell them. But I just want the New York trip. But just embarrassing all around, man. Like, we keep thinking, how worse can it get? And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse by the day, really.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry to cut you off, Mark. Something that Michael brought up too there that did bother me even more was whenever you said, the guys are going to the media, and what did we hear after in the locker room, in the media, after the game? We heard Ryan Kelly call what Kayvon Thibodeau bullshit. He said, "Oh, this is bullshit." So you'll talk about it in the media after the game, but when it's staring you right in the face, you won't do anything about it. And that really just seems to really encapsulate what this team is about right now. Is they're like, we've talked about it on the show multiple times. They love to talk. They love to get in front of those microphones, and they love to talk. But when it's time to, as Ryan Kelly said earlier in the season, shit or get off the pot. I mean, we see what they do every week, and for him to go into the media and say, that was bullshit whenever it was staring you in the face, and once again you refused to take action and you refused to do anything, you don't earn the right to call it anything in the media. because you didn't do anything. You sat with your hands in your pocket. So that really rubbed me the wrong way. So, I just wanted to point that out on you, Marcus. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, no, you're good. You're
But
good.
it
Definitely.
appears they got off the pot.
Yeah, definitely. But like Mike said, it's just a disgusting performance all around. We do feel for those 14 people that got on that plane, and maybe they never seen a Colts game in person. Unfortunately, it was that moment that they seen one of the worst Colts team that ever created. I seen Landon retweeted about the DVOA that this is one of the worst offensive ranked teams since who was that drafted again?
This is the worst offense in the NFL since the 2018 Arizona Cardinals with Josh Rosen at quarterback.
Josh Rosen, what a guy!
This is, I believe, of all time, this is the 12th worst offense by DVOA all time in NFL history. So,
yeah, and the Colts
or
was
at
on
least
there
since
again in
DVOA has
1991.
been tracked. So yeah, the 12th worst offense of all time.
And real quick, to talk about further the offensive line, we dog on Jim Irsay and we dog on Chris Ballard, but to take the attention off of them for a second, it's really disgusting how this offensive line has just really performed, not only physically on the field, but mentally, and just being a pathetic teammate, really. It's quite embarrassing when you really think about it. Hell, and again, this impacts your perception around the league. And even though people might say like, oh my gosh, no, that's ludicrous. What about the perception to guys entering the draft who's a quarterback and they know Indy needs a quarterback and they're watching, their agent comes to them, hey man, look at how this offensive line reacted to their quarterback. Do I really want to play behind Ryan Kelly? Maybe don't take any meetings with Indy. I don't want to interview with them at the Senior Bowl. I don't want to interview with them at the Combine. I don't want to do any of that. Like, I don't want to take any visits. I don't want to play behind Quentin Nelson. Like, look at how they treated Matt Ryan. Look at how they treated Nick Foles. Look at how they treated Sam Ehlinger. Does a rookie really want to play behind those kind of guys? I mean, if we're being honest, in the hard times is when leadership should show up, and it just seems like everybody's checked out. Some reasons I could understand. We all could understand, right? For some reasons, definitely. But this is the offensive line. This is the quarterback that got hurt. This is the quarterback. Regardless if you're 0-16 or 16-0, you should always take exception to your quarterback being disrespected to the utmost, like Nick Foles was on Sunday.
Like
that was pathetic.
Exactly like what the Giants did whenever
Daniel
Jones got hurt. But I mean, I'll say this though too.
And just real quick, that wasn't even that bad of a hit. Bobby Okereke, he let up. He barely touched him with his forearm.
Yeah. But I'll say this for the offensive line too. And like we could, I mean, it is bad optics and it does look bad. But since week 8 of this season, they are PFF. Whether you believe in that or not, it is what it is. But they have been the 11th overall graded offensive line since week 8. Bernard Raimann, however you would want to pronounce it, he has been just growing at an astronomical rate here lately. Another fantastic performance by him this weekend. And believe now he is the 7th overall rated offensive tackle in football since week 12. That's counting left tackles and right tackles. So it looks like, if he can get that play strength up this offseason a little bit more, he's obviously got room to grow there in his body. We could be looking at a very strong left tackle. And I think Braden's done a really good job this season. Nelson has, while he hasn't been Quentin Nelson, the guy that we're used to this season, he's still a good guard. Like, I mean, he's not elite and he's not worth that price tag right now at all. But he hasn't necessarily been an issue. And he's still, I know in the locker room from reports and talking to some people, he cares. He cares a lot. And it might not have shown up Sunday, and that just might have been a lapse in that. But he really does give a shit about how this season's gone. And it really bothers him. It really bothers him the way he's played this season. And I don't want people to sit and just think that, there's not anybody on that offensive line that cares or gives a crap, because there are bright spots, for sure. So I really think right guard and center would be the issues I would attack along the offensive line. And who knows, we can sit here and say a rookie might not want to play behind them or might not want to do any of this, but this could be a complete. I mean, we're all assuming at this point, which I know what happens whenever you assume. The whole thing. What happens when you assume? But we're assuming this is a completely different team here. Judging from veterans that want out, coaches that do want out of this organization. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and you're likely looking at a whole brand new team here in a couple months, and that's with a new guy at the helm. I don't think Jeff Saturday is going to be hired as the head coach, but like I said, I never put anything past Irsay. You never know what's going to happen. He'll tell you one thing, and then 3 seconds later, his mind changes. Nobody knows. But just judging on what I've heard, what I'm sure you guys have heard, I don't expect Jeff Saturday to be back as head coach. I think this was just an interim thing. Irsay wanted somebody trusted, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think for a rookie quarterback coming in to this team here in a few months, because make no mistake about it, you can talk about Derek Carr and you can talk about this, and everybody can make their jokes online. That's going to happen. It's not happening. There will be a rookie quarterback drafted. I can almost guarantee it, coming from ownership that is coming from the top. There will be a rookie quarterback drafted. And if they like a guy enough, and they like multiple guys in this class, if they like them enough, they will be aggressive and they will trade up to get him. That is multiple people, including Zach Kiefer, Shad, Destin, multiple sources there that have covered that topic. So I don't want people to get the wrong impressions of that. But yeah, Sunday was definitely a bad look, and I do agree with Michael's point there, that it does look rough if you're watching that game on Sunday and you are a rookie quarterback and you're looking at that and you're sitting there like, I don't know. But with so much change going on, I don't expect it to be an issue going forward.
And that's at the beginning of January.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Talk about what it is on April 1st.
Exactly. We can't judge what this team looks like until after the draft.
It's going to be completely different.
It's going to be completely different. Completely.
It's not going to.
Yeah, man. Once the draft comes around, we get there. And now that we talked about, the Jeff Saturday situation as the interim coach, brings up to the title of this live stream. And I've seen the comments already. We've been talking about it. We already getting them now. Harbaugh head coach, CJ Stroud drafted QB. We got give me CJ Stroud here. Then one more week of sad, and then we look forward. But it is what it is. So now we can talk about it. Jim Harbaugh. If you guys didn't see it, it was a report talking about him willing to take an NFL deal to leave Michigan. And of course, a lot of people are starting to put their baskets in the hat and mention the Colts. And I want to get you guys' thoughts first before we get to the Colts. Let me get your thoughts about Jim Harbaugh himself. I know we talked about it a lot of times, but now that the offseason is almost here, and then we're actually getting to swing of that new regime. Let me just get your personal thoughts. Landon, we can start with you about Jim Harbaugh as a coach and how he fit Indy.
Well, one, he would be the perfect fit for Indy. I mean, I don't think there's really any question about that. I mean, you're looking at a guy. He's almost one of one as a coach. I mean, you're talking about a guy who, former player, played quarterback in the NFL, played quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, and played well. He's in the Colts Ring of Honor. He has developed quarterbacks, including Andrew Luck. And then on top of that, you're talking about a guy who's 44-19 in the NFL. He's had success everywhere he's gone as a coach. It's not like one of these things where, he's been bad at any of his stops. He hasn't. And we can even go back to San Francisco. So the year he was hired in San Francisco, that team, I believe, had a top 3 pick in that draft. And the very first year he was head coach, they went to the NFC title game. The next year after that, they went to the Super Bowl. The next year after that, NFC title game. And then they were around 500 before ownership made the decision to fire him. So 4 years there, NFC title game, Super Bowl, which they did not win, but they got to the Super Bowl, which I think a lot of Colts fans would be happy about just even getting there after what we've watched this year. Then another NFC title game. And this is coming from a team that had a top 5 overall pick. As soon as he got in that room, took over that team, you saw the results immediately. And he's been successful everywhere he's gone. So, yeah, I think he's the perfect candidate, not only for what he's done in Indianapolis, but for what he could give you from drafting a young quarterback and building around a young quarterback and putting them in a position to be successful. So, yeah, that's I think that's the home run hire. That's the hire you go all out for, and we'll see, which we'll talk about here in a second. But um, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
All right, Mike. Let me get your thoughts on Jim Harbaugh and his potential to be the head coach for the Colts. How would you feel about it?
The off season for the Colts starts like maybe in a week. The offseason is already here for him. So, have to throw that thing out there at him. Now, watching it Saturday, just seeing how he coaches, he had some coaching miscues in that game, like Jesus Christ. But you don't normally see too much of that from Jim Harbaugh. So, I kind of thought myself when I got away from my TCU cloud, I'm like, wait, so Jim Harbaugh's free now. What does this mean for the Colts? And I started thinking, like, man, how many times did Jim Harbaugh kind of screw Michigan in this game? Like, he allowed these things to happen. Clock management at the end, not using his timeouts, the Philly special on 4th and goal and everything. And, that's just like the college level. And, I don't think that will translate to the NFL. But in terms of him being in Indianapolis, of course, like Landon said, it's the perfect fit. First off, I do want to claim, don't expect Peyton Manning to have anything to do with his head coaching search. He's not putting his name in the conversation with Indianapolis anymore. They've made him look bad. Jim Harbaugh would be perfect. Now, honestly, I think this really comes down to just who pays him more. Honestly, I think that's truly what it comes down to for him. Who pays him more? Is Denver? Are they gonna cough it up? Is Peyton Manning gonna get into that coaching search and talk about what it's been like in Denver and how he made the transition from Indy to Denver? Is that how it's gonna be? They're gonna roll out the red carpet. Jim Irsay, he could just invite them to dinner and they can talk. I would love and hope that Jim Harbaugh would say, you know what? Let me come back. Let me come back and really turn around this organization that's up in flames right now. Like we've talked about the past few times, I don't think a coaching staff will be a problem for him. I think he will have a chance at anybody in the league. Any top position coach in the league right now. Hey, you want to come be defensive coordinator? They'll come. Immediately turn in the resignation to their present organization and take the job. Offensive coordinator, if he's got a young stud that he sees in the league, job's yours if you want it. Bang. No questions asked. I do love the idea of him being the head coach for a rookie quarterback than I do a Leslie Frazier or a Steve Wilkes or anything like that because, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but I've seen Leslie Frazier and I don't really come away with, being impressed by anything that he does. I mean, he's still the guy responsible for allowing Kansas City to go 45 yards in 10 seconds. So he's not going to, I'm not letting that go. But I'm just, it's like, who can you get at this point? Jim Harbaugh would just be perfect. It would be so freaking perfect. When you think about, okay, why would he leave Michigan? I think he's done everything he possibly can at Michigan. This was, I thought, the last year that he would try to get a national championship. Obviously fell short, but if you look at what Michigan was when he got there and where it is if he potentially leaves, he did his job. Recruiting became a big thing at Michigan again. Michigan wasn't really pulling in the classes. Jim Harbaugh now bringing in the classes. The coaching staff was outstanding. He didn't really poach guys from the NFL. He found guys in college. And again, you want to go be an assistant under Jim Harbaugh, you get that call, you will take that job. So I think it's time for him to leave college, honestly, but it's also comes to a discussion of, is Denver going to outpay Jim Irsay? You know, if he doesn't mind coughing up the money, then he should just hand Jim Harbaugh a blank check at dinner. That's what it should be about. So I think he's the perfect fit. Number 2 would be D'Amico Ryans for me. Anything outside of those two, I think would be very, very disappointing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Of course, we got a comment from Sarah. She said she would want Jim Harbaugh or D'Amico Ryans as the coach. Izzy said he needs the Colts to beat the Texans on Sunday. We'll give you a preview for that later in the future. Worst case scenario, lose out on Harbaugh, end up with Leslie Frazier as head coach. The amount of realistic candidates given the Colts dysfunction feels pretty low. Shout out to Y. He said Harbaugh's brilliant, but a few years seems to rub people further the wrong way, and change comes. Nomadic Brian said Harbaugh brings crew and calls the shots. From what I hear, I'm all for that. Shout out to Arizona. Appreciate you for being out here for all the support. But Jim Harbaugh definitely could be a good coach for the Indianapolis Colts due to how young the team can be and the potential you can have with the rookie, with a guy with that experience as well, like a QB coach in Harbaugh. I think the sky's the limit. Of course, we're not going to come out the first year and go undefeated, but I think it's going to be baby steps into the turning of the process of what the Colts currently are now. They're a struggling team, and then when you go back to the basics and actually get a franchise quarterback and you get a head coach that's going to be set for your team for a few years to come, and they build that chemistry, it's going to make a good winning team in the future. Of course, the Jaguars pretty much got this division on lockdown. I'm just going to say it now. The Jaguars got it because they went through the process. We used to trash the Jaguars and make fun of how they were because they were good at one point. Then they lost the franchise quarterback. They went to go get Trevor Lawrence. And they went through the losing process, and now look at them. They got a team. They had good drafts. They got a franchise quarterback, and now they're back on top again. And I just want the Colts to experience something like that as well. And they got a head coach. I want to point that out as well. So,
and even on that note, Trevor Lawrence was the worst quarterback in football last year, and now he's now ascended. He has arrived. He has elevated the Jaguars, and it's like, damn, they weren't they like on a 5-game losing streak this season, and now it all comes down to Saturday. Winner takes the division. I'm not entirely sure if you want that title in 2022, but regardless, you get a home playoff game. And just like we talked about, Marcus, at the beginning of the season, should the Colts start tanking when they were like, what, 1-2-1 or something like that?
Yeah.
The conversation was still, I would love to tank, but at this point in the season, if you have a chance to have a home playoff game, you fight for every inch and nail for that. Get in the tournament and you never know what can happen. So I'm not saying whatever quarterback you take is going to have the Trevor Lawrence type road. You'll be bad for 1 year and then next year. Every quarterback ascends in the NFL differently. Not everybody just arrives immediately. And for goodness gracious, people need to stop comparing everything to Andrew Luck. You're not going to have the Andrew Luck story. You're not going to have the Patrick Mahomes story. You're not going to have – some people are going to take 3 years to arrive. Some people may even take 4. Hell, Daniel Jones was garbage, and then Brian Daboll gets there, turns the offensive system around his style of play, and they're in the playoffs. So,
yeah. What goes to show you just the coaching decision matters. The coaching decision matters just as much, if not more. Well, I wouldn't say more, but it matters just as much as the quarterback they draft. So, it's tough, the position that they're in right now. Obviously, like I said, we'll see what happens. But if you want my honest opinion, I don't think Jim Harbaugh ends up in Indianapolis, namely because I think he will want roster control. And from everything that's been reported, and I've heard, Chris Ballard will be back as GM this year. And I just don't see that as a possibility. Now, who knows, like I said, with Jim Irsay, like if because him and Harbaugh are close. Like they talk often. Every time Harbaugh is in the Indianapolis area, they go out to dinner together. They I heard today from Destin actually on their podcast. Check them out. But he actually owns a stake in a race team in Indiana. So he has business ventures in the area as well. So who's to say that if Harbaugh says I'll take the job if I can bring in a guy that I trust to be the GM and I have personnel to control, who's to say Jim doesn't, or Jim Irsay doesn't say, hey, we have a deal, and we've seen him switch his mind very quickly. So, but all the reports right now are that Ballard will be back. They expect him back. Irsay wants him back, and I just don't know if they're willing to go as far as they need to go for Jim Harbaugh, or if they can, because Denver, as bad as the situation is there with Russell Wilson and stuff, they can pay a lot more than Jim Irsay can pay. They have deeper pockets than anybody in the NFL right now. That is the richest owner by far in the NFL. They can make him the highest paid coach if he wants it. And on top of that, they're also at a GM. Their GM is taking a step back as well. So they can offer him full personnel control as well. I think Denver has the inside track to Jim Harbaugh if they want him. And I heard the Carolina stuff today, some of the stuff being reported that they've been in contact with the Panthers as well about their opening. There's been some guys that I trust that have completely refuted that, that it's not a real story. It's not a real thing. But, it's I actually heard that they're actually kind of tied more to Shane Steichen, the Philadelphia offensive coordinator, than they are to Harbaugh. That's kind of their target right now. So, I don't see Harbaugh in Indianapolis. Things can change, but that's just where I stand on January 3rd. And what I actually tweeted out earlier, I said, if I can be talked to any other quarterbacks. Like if you want to go Will Levis, that's fine. You want to go Anthony Richardson, that's fine. CJ Stroud, I'm all in on. But what I'm afraid of is they swing for the fences with Jim Harbaugh, they miss out. And the options after that are not that great. I know it's one of 32 jobs. There's going to be people that will take the job that do want to be head coaches in the league, but I'm not so sure that they would want to walk in to a lame duck GM, because here's the thing: head coach is hired. Chris Ballard's the GM. If they go through another season like this, or another, if he gets the quarterback decision wrong, and we're 2 years in and the quarterback is awful, you want a place where you have stability at, where you at least have 3 to 4 years to build your system, build your staff, build your players, stuff like that. And Irsay has shown, at least over the last 12 months, to be extremely volatile in his decision making. So that, and the way the Irsay handled the Saturday situation, or the Frank Reich situation, by firing him over the phone, you're bringing in, them pass everybody up in that building to hire basically one of his friends and a guy with no experience. I mean, it has really rubbed a lot of people in coaching circles the wrong way. Not only people in the locker room as coaches currently for the Colts, but people outside of the locker room as coaches for the Colts, as candidates to be head coach. So it's an uphill battle to get one of these, young up and comers like DeMeco Ryans. I don't think that's a thing. He can afford to be choosy. He wants to wait another year. He can afford to do that. Ben Johnson in Detroit, if he wants to wait another year, he can afford to do that. Shane Steichen, do we really think after the Sirianni thing that happened earlier this year, he's going to be chomping at the bits to be a head coach in Indianapolis? Probably not, I would assume. So all these young up and coming guys that show a lot of promise and can build around young quarterbacks, they're probably going to be off that list if they don't land Harbaugh. And then you're getting into guys like Leslie Frazier, Steve Wilkes, There's some other names there as well. I know Matt Campbell from Iowa State has been mentioned as well, and guy that can't even win in college really, and he has no experience in the NFL. That's terrifying to me, especially when you're drafting a young quarterback. So I don't see any path forward to me to keep Chris Ballard. I mean,
That's if he wants to stay.
that's even if he wants to stay. And look, there's a reason why he's been so quiet. So he normally does the press conferences at least quarterly. So every 4 weeks he would come out and do a press conference. He'll have I assume he will have the end of the year press conference. But
Yeah,
there's a reason why nobody has heard from Chris Ballard outside of that Jeff Saturday press conference. And if you looked at him in that Jeff Saturday press conference, he did not want to be there at all.
looked like he wanted to rip someone's head off.
Yeah. So I'm not sure he even doesn't just say, screw the money left on I'll leave the money on the table to get out of here. But at that point, that might be what's best for both parties, for Chris Ballard and for the Colts, because then you would be able to offer somebody like Harbaugh, like, you can have player control. You can bring your own GM in. We'll double your salary, 15, 20 million. I say we'll spend the money. He just doesn't have as deep of pockets as the Denver owners do. So I do think they have the inside track. Denver does the Harbaugh, but if they miss out on Harbaugh, I'm extremely worried about who they bring in as head coach.
And see, that's my question. Is that best case scenario? Yes, I still like Chris Ballard. I'm trying to get, as like he said last year, trying to get a little bit of the poison out. A lot of my disdain is pointed at Jim Irsay if we really pull the curtain back. I still like Chris Ballard, but is that best case scenario? Chris Ballard, we should root for Chris Ballard to resign, and that would open the door for Jim Harbaugh because, like you said, roster control. Chris Ballard doesn't. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say he doesn't know Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, he does. But what professional relationship do they have? Really, in all honesty, which one? Are they going to
both ties to Ballard and Harbaugh?
Yeah, are they going to come to a decision?
They're both from the Midwest.
And make no mistake about it, Chris Ballard is, I think, an alpha GM where he's calling shots and everything, except for when Jim Irsay intervenes. But Jim Harbaugh is also alpha of the alphas in head coaches. He will put his foot down, and it can have another blow-up situation. So I don't think you see Ballard and Harbaugh in Indianapolis together. It's either one guy or the other. Personally, yeah, I'm not really personally been told that. It's either one guy or the other. So if I'm being honest, man, I'm honestly like, you know what? I don't care who's GM. If Chris Ballard was to leave, who would you hire? I know some people have put out like Will McClay from Dallas. I don't think he would even want this job. It would be the same thing that he has in Dallas. He's not really doing much. Jerry Jones is doing everything, and Steven. So it's rocky, man. If Jim Harbaugh doesn't come, like you said, DeMeco Ryans, he can just say, you know what? I'll continue having the number one defense. We'll make long playoff runs, and I'll just cash in next year.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It really is. It's a tough situation, and like I said, because I see Wyatt down there, he commented, there's only 32 NFL head coaching jobs. I said that too. I mean, I agree. There's only 32 of these jobs. There will be guys that want to be head coaches in this league that will show up to interview. This isn't going to be an entire thing. My thing is the guys that have the option that are either up and coming offensive coordinators, like DeMeco Ryans or Ben Johnson or Shane Steichen, like these guys that they have the ability to say, hey, I'm going to stay where I'm at, continue to be successful. And like Mike said, we'll try to cash in next year on a head coaching job. They have options. Now, some of the other guys, Jim Caldwell wants to get back into coaching. I would love Jim Caldwell.
I would love him.
I would love to have him back here. Leslie Frazier, another guy, I think of that next tier that I would trust more. I think he did get the raw end of the stick there in Minnesota. He took a team that was awful. And the very next year, he led them to the playoffs, and he never had it. He's never had a franchise quarterback as a head coach. He never. Christian Ponder was his guy. They went to the playoffs 2 years in a row under him with Christian Ponder, and then the very next year, he was another guy that they had a down year. Once again, they didn't have a franchise quarterback. He was fired mid-season after 2 straight playoff appearances. So he didn't. He got 2.5 years, and 2 out of those 2.5 years, they went to the playoffs without a franchise quarterback. So I thought, and he hasn't been a head coach since. All he's done is run numerous top 5 defenses in the league since he's been fired as a head coach. So he's a guy that I would feel comfortable with, but he's also an older guy. He's over 60 years old. He's a defensive guy. Who he would be able to bring in on his offensive staff is going to be paramount to this quarterback that we draft. That's going to be the entire. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to go. To me, it's a no question. You have to do a full reset, get your franchise quarterback, and build a strong coaching staff and a strong roster around that guy. Jim Irsay has done it before. He did it with Peyton Manning. He didn't do it with Andrew Luck, which is why Andrew Luck ended up retiring when he retired. So we've seen the good of what can happen when Irsay does settle down and lets the people that he hires do their job. We've seen what happens. We've also seen what happens whenever he makes the bad decision, and that's Andrew Luck. Yeah, Bubba Ventrone is fantastic. He is awesome. He's an up and coming head coach candidate. I fully agree. He will not be back to the Indianapolis Colts. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of it. A lot of that has to do with the decisions that took place this year, but I don't expect him back. This whole staff is gone. Everybody that's in that building as a staff, the only one I could possibly see even possibly keeping his job, and that's only if he wants it, is Reggie Wayne.
Yeah, I knew that's where you were going.
Yeah, that's the only one because that's one of Irsay's guys. That's the only guy in that coaching staff right now that if he says, I want to keep this job, I want to continue coaching, he'll have the job. But that's entirely up to him. After this season's gone, or after the way this season's gone, I'm not even entirely sure Reggie wants to coach after what he's been through, just in his first year as a position coach.
Yeah, I think those dreams sailed. I think those dreams got crushed. Like, can't wait for coaching, man. And then all of a sudden.
Yeah, he was so excited to get in here. And this season's just, it's been an abject disaster. So, Bubba Ventrone is going to be awesome for somebody, but it won't be for the Colts, unfortunately. And if he was really a true candidate for the Colts, he would have been the interim coach. They would have made him the interim coach. And for whatever reason, they didn't. That's who I would have chosen. I think it was absolutely idiotic the way things were handled. It was just emotional. It was out of line. And it's really rubbed almost basically everybody in that. You see it on the field every week. You see it every week. And you don't have to have people up here. We appreciate you tuning in and we love you tuning in, but you don't have to have us tell you that. All you got to do is watch on Sundays and it shows up on the field. So, that's my biggest worry is if they don't land Harbaugh, and I don't expect them to, what route do they take? Is Chris Ballard allowed to actually hire a head coach? Because he wasn't last time. Frank Reich was a Jim Irsay suggestion that he did hire. Chris Ballard is the guy that put the pen to the paper, but Frank Reich was not even on his radar until Jim Irsay mentioned him. So is he able to finally get his guy? And then you ride, because if he is, and if Chris Ballard is back, he's allowed to hire his head coach. He is allowed to draft his quarterback. You're going to have to be comfortable with giving him at least 3 to 4 more years as your GM. You're going to have to. So if that's something, I don't know where they go. And I'm curious to hear from you guys too, because I know I've been taking up a lot of airtime right now with this. So what's your opinion on it?
Man, just prepare for Jeff Saturday.
I was about to say something like that, Mike. I was going to say worst case scenario, if it's bound to happen, being as though we know who was behind the whole thing, if Irsay was to keep Saturday another year at the head coach position, I want to get your thoughts on it, Mike, first.
If he was to keep Jeff Saturday
another year at head coach.
Man, bro.
PG-13 reaction.
I
PG-13.
think I'll turn in my fan card for a year. And I'm being actually legit. I probably won't watch this team. And if we really get down to it, I probably have to watch this team because we cover them. But dude, look, man, we'll keep saying it. We love Jeff. We love what he represents. We love who he was when he was here as a player. He was a Hall of Famer here, won a Super Bowl. We love Jeff Saturday. But dude, in today's NFL, not 2009, in today's NFL, who in the hell is Jeff Saturday? Who is he? Like
a really bad head coach.
ESPN guy.
A really, really, really bad head coach. What's the point differential? Like 100? Negative 100?
79. Negative 79.
Might as well be 100. Like the team has gotten worse. There's been even more bad body language, and I mean, hell, man, where's my head coaching job? Like, can I get a head coaching job in high school? I'm still cool with my coach. Can I get a defensive coordinator? Landon, you want to come be my scouting? You want to come do that? Like,
I'll be your quarterback coach.
Oh, okay, there you go. But it would be asinine to bring Jeff Saturday back. It would. And honestly, I know, Landon, like you said earlier, I've had one person told me that Jeff Saturday is not coming back. Man, I texted back LOL. Like, man, we've been told, and not even just the Colts fans in general, everybody in the NFL has been told something so-and-so is not happening. And then that thing happens. Some of it is just PR work, keep everything dialed down. Don't let anything get in the public just yet. But you might as well freaking hire Dallas Clark at this point. I mean, we love these guys, man. We love the glory days. But Jim Irsay can't let go of the glory days. Reggie Wayne, we were so excited, and now he just looks pissed off to be the coach on the sidelines. I mean, he's having to coach tight ends now. He's having to help out with the receiving portion for tight ends because Clayton Adams left for Stanford. So now you don't have Frank Reich. You don't have Marcus Brady. You don't even have Clayton Adams now. So now everybody else on the offensive side of the ball is having to pick up more and more and more slack. And it's not fair to those guys. So my reaction, if Jeff Saturday came back, would be speechless. And y'all probably better hope that I don't have my account back at that time.
I kind of do hope you have it back at that time so you'll get off the Blue Stablewood.
Well, one, it would be the worst case scenario, honestly. Not just from Jeff. And this isn't to say, like, in years from now, like, Jeff can't be a good head coach. I mean, he can years from now. He's not right now. He doesn't have the experience right now. That's something I know Irsay said he likes that he doesn't have the experience. I'm sure he doesn't like what's happened over the last 7 weeks of the season. I'm actually sure he doesn't. But yeah, and the thing too, like that nobody talks about with Jeff is if you do have Jeff Saturday, you're likely not getting a strong staff either around him. You can't have a guy that's never been a head coach that has coaching connections because he's never been a head coach. So does he have friends in football? Absolutely. Have any of them been head coaches? Likely not. So could you see Dan Orlovsky? Maybe. Is he a fantastic guy to watch on TV? Yeah. Is he a fantastic was he a quarterback in the NFL? Regardless if he was good or bad, you're in the top 1% of anybody that's ever lived to do that job. So clearly he knows what he's talking about. Is he a good head coach? Or not head coach, but is he going to be a good offense coordinator? You don't know. He doesn't have the experience. So you're likely looking at guys like that, a lot of inexperienced guys that possibly former players that come in with Jeff Saturday, and that would just be a disaster to me. I think if you're trying to reboot this, as much as Jim Irsay said in that press conference, and he might actually believe it, I hope he doesn't. Experience is a crucial thing. It truly is. Not just head coaching experience, but just any kind of coaching. Whether offensive line coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, just any type of experience coaching in the NFL. That not just for 6 games, for years. I mean, that is at least 2 years. I would say would be the minimum. That would be that should be an absolute prerequisite. I don't see how it's not, but we don't know. But yes, I agree. With whoever texted you, I've heard some of the same stuff. I don't expect Jeff Saturday back. I really don't. At least not in the head coaching role. Could he be back in the organization, in the front office, or could he be, advisor like he was previously? Absolutely. I don't expect him to not be involved in the organization, and I wouldn't want him to not be involved because he does care about this organization. He does want it to be successful. But he's just not a head coach. He's just, at least right now. Now, maybe in 15 years, if he keeps, or not 15 years, but even 2 or 3 years grinding, as a head coach, and maybe he becomes the offensive line coach. And he's done a good job with the offensive line. He really has. So maybe your mic's muted, Mike.
I was gonna say, even if Jim Irsay says, hey, whoever the new coach is, you're going to be quality control. Even if that's a position, you're at least growing and learning under a staff.
Yeah, I agree. So that should be a prerequisite. Experience has to be a prerequisite in the search. And I know, I know we're giving off negative vibes. I saw that. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm really not. It's just this is the situation right now. This is what it is. It is what it is. There are some positive things to look. Like I said, Bernard Ryman has been a positive so far. There are some positive things to look for in this season. There really are. But we're just trying to give you. We're going to be real about the situation. I'm not.
Hey, we didn't make this situation.
Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to tell you what it's actually looking like right now, and this is what it's looking like. And that's unfortunate. It really is, because we don't want to be negative. We don't want to be negative at all. I want to be positive about this team. I want to see this team succeed. I love this team. I've been a fan for this team. I've watched the Colts play for 25 years. I know I'm a little bit older than both these guys up here, but I don't want to be negative about it, but I am going to be real about the situation that they're in right now, and that's unfortunately what they're staring in the face. And hopefully everything. In a few months, we're talking about how great the head coach hire was, how great the quarterback pick was. There's a lot of optimism. That's where I hope to be 2 to 3 months from now. I really do. But as we're sitting here on January 3rd, this is what it is. It is what it is right now.
Hey, speaking of the quarterback pick, y'all think we should? They're saying giving off negative vibes. Should we flip the script here a little bit and talk some quarterback?
Yeah. Let's get positive.
Let's get positive, baby.
That's actually going to go to the next segment, because now we've reached a mark. If you have any questions to ask us, maybe draft, head coaching wise, QB wise, feel free to ask us now. We definitely have that question, which is the first one. So who's the QB of the future and why him? There's a lot of these questions that I've seen in the comment section that's pretty much similar to this question. I've seen one that asked Landon himself. He said, Landon, who is your QB, and wish the coach draft the right spot when drafting him. So we can go first at QB. Landon, you can go. Who would the QB you will want out of the draft?
I know it's kind of cliche, but any of them. I want any of them. Any of the 4, I'm fine with. There are some that I'm more comfortable with. Bryce Young is my quarterback 1 right now. That's the guy that I would go Torrey, and then after that, I would probably go C.J. Stroud and then Will Levis. Any of those three, I'm comfortable with. Obviously, the first two, if we can land Stroud or Bryce Young, I'm going to be doing backflips. Will Levis, I'm a big fan of Will Levis as well. If you follow me, you know how I feel about him. So I'd be excited to get Will Levis. And then if they do go Anthony Richardson as well, he's a lot more of a project than those guys, and he might not even play next year at all. But he's another guy. Like I would be excited to see if he's able to hit his ceiling, because if he is, you've got a dynamite quarterback. You've got a franchise quarterback. So yeah, any other guys I'd be comfortable with. But right now, if I could have my pick of the litter, it would either be Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. Is kind of where we're shooting for the moon right now. So.
All right, Mike, let's give your thoughts. Who would you want at QB for the Indianapolis Colts?
Man, I swear I wanted Arizona and Denver to seal the deal on Sunday, because that means the Colts would have been number 3. My quarterback 1 is C.J. Stroud, and that changed Saturday night for me. That game, C.J. Stroud showed something that we haven't seen out of him, and that was the biggest question. He used his mobility. Not only that, Georgia tested those draft questions. They tested those draft questions. Can he be mobile? Is he athletic enough to, create on the fly? And that's exactly what he did in that game. The defense was trash. They let him down. If his defense was worth a damn, they would be playing for the national championship. So C.J. Stroud did everything he could on Saturday night. The throws that he made were top tier. And I know earlier in the day, Bryce Young was slinging it, but oh my gosh, something about Saturday night C.J. Stroud showed just topped it for me. He was already quarterback 2, but just adding that element to his game, it put him over the top for me. Bryce Young is possibly going to be quarterback number 1 off the board, although if I'm Houston, that's a real debate. Bryce Young is not a sure thing at number 1. That should be a real debate. Who will lead us farther, longer? And the size of Bryce Young is a real question. Can he take hits at the NFL level? How long can he stay upright? His frame, that's a question. But like Landon said, if we got Young or Stroud, I'm doing backflips off Lucas Oil Stadium. If we're getting Levis or Anthony Richardson, I'm extremely happy. I'm good with either one. But if I had my one pick, then it would be C.J. Stroud, because that game. Look, man.
Well, something else too. I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but so I taught. This is actually going back a few months ago. I was talking to some guys, just doing my due diligence with some prospects and stuff, and they were kind of tied into the Ohio State program a little bit. They were saying that C.J. Stroud is one of the smartest people they've ever been around, not just in football, but just in general. He has basically what's equivalent to a photographic memory. So they say like anytime they're in meetings or anything like that, it's complete. Like he's on top of everything. And, that's something to me like that I really look for in a quarterback. All the great quarterbacks have that kind of stuff. To where their recall is just insane. And the Colts, they've had 2 quarterbacks, the 2 best quarterbacks in franchise history, outside of Johnny Unitas, and I'm sure he was probably the same way. But Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning were the same way. They both had photographic memories. Their attention to detail was second to none. And whenever I hear that about a prospect coming from, some of the people that I trust that do know about him, that gets me excited. And so I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but that's another little wrinkle into the C.J. Stroud. If you're in that camp and you want C.J. Stroud, that's another positive for you to kind of lean on, because I haven't really seen it reported anywhere. or not, and it might be reported on during draft time. But yeah, super smart guy. Super.
Yeah, when
I'm
they get him
definitely
in the round of interviews at the Senior Bowl and the Combine, I'm sure that'll probably come out. Dude, it's just something about that game against Georgia that, I was already high off emotion for obvious reasons on my forehead, but watching that game, I'm just sitting there like, if CJ Stroud performed the way he performed against Michigan, Georgia is probably blowing the doors off of Ohio State. But CJ Stroud, time and time again, creating on the fly. And there were so many instances where one of the plays or many of the plays that were called were first read, ball is out, first read. Georgia has it covered, and now they're bringing the blitz. He's creating on the fly to Emeka Ibuka and Marvin Harrison Jr. And goodness gracious, this man is doing it, and his kicker didn't come through for him. Poor guy, Portecito. But he got Ohio State in position to win that game. And just imagine what he could do at the NFL level with an NFL kicker, with NFL kickers, professional kickers, how that can come. And this isn't to diminish anything about Bryce Young or Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. Still, those guys could end up being better than CJ Stroud. Those guys could end up being better. Hell, Brock Purdy has proven to be the best quarterback out of this last draft class, which, I mean, there weren't really high marks for this last one.
Well, I don't know about that. Kenny Pickett's, he's coming on.
I mean, okay, yeah, after Sunday, that was a very nice throw on the
We
move.
can thank the Colts for that. We warmed them up.
Right. Not that was a sweet throw to Najee Harris. But I was making a grilled cheese during that too.
Yeah, they're 6-2 in their last 8 games. And yeah, he has been phenomenal, and I still think there's a lot of room to grow too. There's
definitely.
There's a lot of stuff that he left out on the field, but yeah, he's looked every bit a part of now you want leaving your franchise.
Right. I will say this. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad take. I hope this doesn't receive any backlash for it. Oh, no. But if I'm the Colts, I'm doubling down on quarterback. No, not first round and second round. No, don't do that. But I'm doubling down. I'm doing what Washington did. Remember, they got RG3 and then they doubled down with Kirk Cousins, kind of solidifying the backup spot a little bit. I'm getting the guy round 1, but backup. If you're content with Sam Ehlinger, which I believe you're not, but if you're content with him, or maybe you want to go get a vet, I'm not sure if Gardner Minshew is on his last year of the contract. I haven't checked the contract out yet, but if there's a vet out there you want to bring in, maybe. But I would rather just bring in 2 young guys and just play them. One guy is the obvious is the starter. Something happens, got another young guy. Go out there, play, grow, develop, hold it down, and then that's what I would do personally. Now, what mid-round quarterback would that be? I have no idea. You could go DKR. You could DK. I don't even think I said his name right. The UCLA quarterback. You could go Tanner McKee. You could. I mean, those are some solid quarterbacks. I would double down personally. Maybe that's just my, overreaction to how bad the quarterback position has been. But to me, I don't think it would hurt if you double down at that position.
Definitely. The QB of my choice would definitely be Bryce. Love all the QBs. I don't care which one we get. In the words of Landon, any QB that we can actually develop and build a franchise around, I'm all in, because we're too high up in the draft to not get one. So I'm not opposed to any quarterback in the selection. Another question further up, they said if Gus is leaving next year, or are you keeping him? So, Landy, you can go first on this Gus question.
I mean, I would love to keep him around. I mean, you would love to keep all the defensive stuff.
It's a preview to the playing GM of the Indianapolis Colts series.
Yeah. I mean, like, you talking about, like, if it's up to me, am I keeping him? Or, I mean, yeah.
Is Gus leaving next year or keeping him?
I would. Yeah, if it was up to me, yeah, I'd absolutely keep him around, and I would keep those position coaches of his around too. They've done a fantastic job, but the reality is, no. I mean, they're probably not going to be back. I don't see it at all. So yeah, that's. But yes, if it was up to me, yes, I would bring him back next year as well.
I would have made him head coach after we got rid of Frank, but that's just my answer. What about you, Mike?
Petty. Not really petty. This is what should have been done. But yeah. Yeah. Personally, I'm making him the highest paid assistant in the NFL, especially with the job that he's done. I'm also giving pay raises to some of his assistants. Namely, the first one that comes to mind, Richard Smith. The job that he's done with EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin, who I think had a Pro Bowl deserving type season. I mean, the turnaround that he's made, EJ Speed, Bobby Okereke, even though I am kind of bracing for this Sunday to be his last game in Indianapolis. Easily, man. That's an easy question for me. If push comes to shove, I'm making Gus Bradley the highest paid assistant in the NFL.
100%, 100%. Another question that I came up with myself: if we had a chance to move up in the draft to even have a higher chance of securing one of those QBs, like a Bryce or a CJ, would you do it, Mike?
I think I would, because another question that I even talked with Landon about the other day, I don't think it's a done deal Seattle doesn't go quarterback, especially after the day CJ Stroud had. I'm having questions now.
I agree.
Like Jalen Carter
Well,
is
not only that, but over the last 6 weeks ago, I would have told you, no, they're re-signing Geno, and they still might. But the last 6 weeks have not been the same as the first 11. So
yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure they don't take a quarterback. I think if you want CJ Stroud, you're gonna have to trade up with the Bears wherever they land, whether that's one or two. You're gonna have to end up trading up with the Bears. And I'll tell you this, if they like a quarterback enough, they will be aggressive in going to get him. And
Yep.
it will probably piss people off about how much they're gonna have to pay to get who they want. But if you believe a guy's your franchise quarterback, there's no price that's too big.
You go get him.
You go get who you want, and they will be aggressive. And if they like a guy enough, they will be aggressive and they will go get him. So,
especially. Yeah,
Go ahead.
especially if you have teams now joining the quarterback fray. Las Vegas, they're going to get rid of Derek Carr. They're going to be in the hunt for a quarterback. The New Orleans Saints, if somebody wants to give up draft picks for Sean Payton, now they've entered the quarterback fray. And Carolina Panthers, and another team that I'm going to throw out there, the Detroit Lions. They still have LA Rams draft picks. They're positioned right now to make the playoffs, but even then, they could still trade up. They still have their own picks to deal. So their picks and LA's picks. So you might find yourself in a position where Chicago might be sitting pretty. Who can offer us the best deal? Call us back in an hour.
Yeah. So just for example, and it might be a little bit less than this, and obviously times have changed. We don't know. There's a lot of teams that need a quarterback right now, so the bidding war can get out of hand. But whenever the Eagles moved up the 2 overall to get Carson Wentz in the the 2016 draft, they got the Browns number 2 overall pick and a 4th round pick in 2017, but they paid their 1st overall pick, which was number 8. So the Colts would actually have a leg up on them there. It'd be a higher pick, but they paid a 1st rounder, a 3rd rounder, a 4th rounder, and a 1st rounder in 2017, and a 2nd rounder in 2018. So it's not cheap. It won't be cheap, especially if they end up Houston, because Houston, they're not locked into number 1 right now. If they beat the Colts on Sunday and the Bears lose, the Bears have the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and that's only going to make that pick even more difficult to get. So yeah, it's there's a possibility that you can be paying a lot. I'm not even talking about just picks. I mean, I know it sucks, but I mean, you see guys like DeForest Buckner and multiple first round picks traded go up there and get him. But if they believe in a guy that much, they will be aggressive. There will be trades made. They will go get him. And they won't take, and that's coming from ownership. Irsay's done with the vet quarterback thing. Like, he's done. He's over it. There's not going to be a vet brought in to start next year. There will be a rookie. They will go get their guy. Now, if they're able to not make that happen, it won't be from the lack of trying. Some team might just have more assets. It is what it is. But it will not be from lack of trying to get their guy.
That just brought up a very interesting, like, who's going to out-tank each other, the Texans or the Colts? Because both of these teams, as you've seen from the DVOA, completely suck when it comes. Like, they just stink.
Hey, the fact that Sam Ehlinger is starting is actually helping me think, like, man, the Colts might move up. They might move up this week, but
no, that's bad. Sam Ehlinger.
He actually wants to play football.
Week. Yeah, the only touchdown they've scored was Sam Ehlinger.
Bro, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
I think I just thought of something. And I heard it earlier. I think since Jeff Saturday has become the head coach of the Colts, they've only scored 6 touchdowns?
7 touchdowns in 6 weeks.
Goodness. Oh, this team sucks. Golly. Bruh.
I will say, Sam gives the Colts a chance to actually win the ball game.
And Sam's not trying to lose that ball game. At all. He's fighting for his job.
Well, the Texans aren't either. That's the thing. The Texans aren't trying to lose the ball game. Lovie Smith is fighting for his job. But those players
might actually be a good game.
Yeah. So, I mean, it won't be a good game, but
Jalen Petrie's getting my vote for rookie defensive player of the year, by the way. But yeah, that's
yeah, the Texans are not locked into number 1. The Texans have to lose this game to get number 1 overall.
I say we get another tie.
Oh, hell no, don't get another tie. Hell no. We'll drop down to freaking 14.
No.
Oh, man.
No, the lowest the Colts can drop, even if they win this game, is 6 overall. And
yeah,
like I said, if they like a guy enough, they will be aggressive and trying to trade up. So even if they end at 6th overall, it's not a guarantee that they don't get their guy.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting to look out for. Definitely gonna be.
I'm actually trying to. I'm gonna look this up right now. Who do the Cardinals and the Broncos play this week?
Broncos play the Chargers.
Jesus, damn it! Yes. Well, the Chargers are already in, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Ooh,
they won. They was in after they beat us.
Yeah, they're in. So hopefully,
Arizona plays the 49ers.
49ers are going to
smoke. Oh, 49ers are all, but they're trying to keep that 2 seed.
Yeah.
Damn it.
They're going to smoke them.
This last week was the best chance you had for both.
If anybody has the 49ers defense, I suggest you go ahead and use them this week.
Yeah. No, I think fantasy's over.
Yeah, this week. Well, not in every league.
Okay.
Only the smart ones.
I know it wrapped up in mine, so.
Yeah, I all wrapped up.
I finished 7th. Freaking injuries hurt me.
Was in the title game.
The game is 0-0 at the end. Colts have the ball in the last second, run to the back of the end zone for a safety.
Yes. Yes.
Gotta be straight out of a movie.
There might be a rain of boos, but hey, there's been booing in that stadium all season. So
all year they were booing when I was there. That was week 3.
Right? Just keep them coming.
Keep them coming. That's crazy that I was the first one to actually notice the tanking, and people called me crazy.
No, that's what sucks is the Colts aren't trying to tank. They're just that bad.
They're just that bad, literally.
That bad.
I think I'm just so interested to see because again, who is going to be making roster decisions? Is it going to be Ballard? Is it going to be a new GM? Who is going to be making the decisions? And if it's going to be somebody new, we could see some trades. You
Oh
could
yeah.
definitely see
Oh,
a DeForest Buckner added in a trade in the draft to move up because now if there's a new GM, he's not married to DeForest Buckner.
I would
DeForest
cry.
Buckner was the first big time move that Chris Ballard made. He's married to DeForest Buckner, but if you get a new guy in there, he's not married to DeForest Buckner. He's not married to Kenny Moore, Ryan Kelly. Hell, he ain't even married to Quentin Nelson, even though I don't think he's really movable as a guard. But he's just not. He won't be married to Shaquille Leonard, even though he's not movable right now either. So, but I think it's depressing to see where we are, but it's also exciting because there if, and this is a huge if, and I do not trust Jim Irsay being wise for the next 3 months. But if by some miracle the city of Indianapolis prays around Jim Irsay's house and an epiphany happens and he starts making good decisions and starts thinking with his head and not with his emotions, and I'm being serious, I'm being legit. If he starts thinking with his head, because deep down, I think when he truly puts his head to it, I think he can make some decent decisions, but it's just been emotionally driven decisions. So if he can make some strong decisions, and whether if it's Ballard or whatever the case may be, I'm interested to see what the new leadership, chain of leadership becomes in Indianapolis. I still think Chris Ballard will stay, but I haven't completely closed the door on him resigning.
Said Buckner could one out. He said, "Would you trade away picks for or players?" I would trade away players if we can move up
Nah,
to
I'm not
trade.
trading away no picks. No.
I'm not trading away picks. I'm gaining. I want picks. If there was
Yeah.
anything, I would definitely want
Especially if you
picks.
need to
Well, the
trade up.
question is like if you're trading away picks or players to move up to like get your quarterback to like trade up to one or two, it's going to take both possibly.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Nobody's taking a 30-year-old DeForest Buckner just alone for a first
yeah,
round pick.
yeah, no, yeah, you're going to have to. You're probably looking at least multiple first rounders, some second, thirds, and Buckner. Kenny Moore could be a trade chip as well. We know what
Yep.
Eber thinks about him, so he can be a guy on the move as well. I expect him to. I don't know if he'll be back, but yeah, it's going to get wild. Like the season starts after Sunday, for better or for worse. We're
Yeah.
in for a wild ride.
Man, I don't know about y'all. I'm just be watching Bobby Okereke all day because I don't want to see him go, man. But I think he's about to cash in.
He's another
I,
guy
I
that
don't.
can
I don't
be
blame him.
Probably heading to Chicago, but
Yeah, like I said, with players like that talent, I don't want it. I don't want it wasted. The same thing for T.Y.
Well, it could
Hilton and those
also
guys.
too, like that could also be like, okay, Okereke could be like if they are going to trade with Chicago, that could be a tag and a trade candidate where they franchise tag him and then trade him to Chicago. So yeah, there's a lot of moves to be made for sure.
definitely. I didn't even think about the tag, even though the Colts really aren't a team that uses the tag. But in this scenario, I think it could be on the table.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like would you do like this year's first, next year's first, a third this year, and Kenny Moore and Okereke to Chicago for 2 overall?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
You know why I would say that? Because if we do that and Ballard stays, Ballard's usually good at drafting late anyway. So I wouldn't be opposed to giving up.
Well, he's good at drafting linebackers too.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't be opposed to trading those.
Definitely.
So
Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. Appreciate everyone that tuned into the stream. It was a great stream. Appreciate all the support. If you haven't liked, comment, or subscribed yet, feel free to do so. We're gonna have more content for you this off season because it's gonna be loaded with theories, controversies, who's gonna be hired, who's gonna be fired, all those good things around the Colts. But before we get out of here, if you didn't know about the visits that the Colts had today, Ken Crawley, defensive back from Colorado, was visiting Indianapolis. Jamar Johnson, defensive back from Indiana, he visited, and Schledwick Redwine from Miami, defensive back. All DBs that the Colts visited today. I guess surrounding the injuries that we had last week. We're going to be looking forward to seeing what they're going to do for this last game. We're going to have a preview for that as well. But you guys stay tuned. Again, appreciate all the support. That's Mike. This is Landon. And this is Culture Shock. And we are out.
See you guys.